Hello student, my name is Abhishek, and as you can see in your surrounding, so there are all these different types of plants and animals. There's a tree, there is grass, there are these cows that are grazing. Now exteriorly, looking at them from outside, all these creatures might look completely different as compared to each other. But you will be surprised to know that each and every organism is made up of the same basic fundamental unit of life. What is this fundamental unit of life? That is exactly what we are going to understand in this chapter. Let's have a look. So again, we see there are so many different types of plants and animals. They are doing their own thing. They are drinking water. Some of them are hunting, right? So all of them are not same in their size and shape. They live on this earth, but they are not of the same size and shape, right? But as we just discussed, they are made up of the same building blocks of life. And these building blocks of life are none other than the cell. Now, how do we know about these cells? Definitely many scientists would have contributed towards this knowledge that we have. So let's have a look at the contribution that the scientists have given us. So there are different types of animal cells, plant cells. This cell over here you see, that is a plant cell. The cell that you see over there is an animal cell. All are different, but they play a very important role in our body. Let's have a look. This is the first scientist who contributed towards our knowledge. In fact, he was the first scientist to ever have observed a cell. His name was Robert Hooke, and in the year 1665, what he did was something very interesting. He designed his own microscope. After designing the first model of the microscope, he took the bark of the tree, a few tissues from the bark of the tree, and focused it under this microscope. When he focused it under the microscope, what did he see? Let's have a look. This is exactly what he saw under the microscope. Now if we zoom onto this a bit, this is what we see, right? So if you can see, student, we have a lot of empty blocks inside, okay, hexagonal blocks inside, right? So these are empty compartments which resemble, if you think about it, can you think what does it resemble? It resembles a honeycomb, right? And this is what our scientists named as cells. Now what is the meaning of this term cell? It is derived from Latin. In Latin, it literally translates into small rooms, because as we just saw, they look like small rooms. But as I told you, this was not the only scientist who contributed towards our knowledge of the cell. There were a few more. Okay, there were these two more scientists with the name M.J. Schleiden and Theodor Schwann. What they did was they contributed something more towards the development of something called as the cell theory. What did they say? They said a very important statement. They said that no matter what living creature we talk about, whether we talk about plants, whether we talk about animals, each and every living being is composed of cell, and these cells are the basic unit of our life. A very important understanding in biology. Then there was one more scientist who contributed towards our knowledge of the cell. He modified these already existing theory. And what did he say? He said that whenever new cells are produced in the body, they come from already existing cell. How can we say this statement? We can say all cells arise from pre-existing cells. So this was a very important thing that he told us. Now all this we figured out with the help of something called as a light microscope, okay, whose zooming capacity was limited. But eventually we discovered something really very interesting, right? So we invented something called as the electron microscope, and that was in the year 1940. Now once we discovered, or once we invented the electron microscope, we could zoom inside the cells and look at their ultra structure, the complex structure inside the cell, right? Okay, now student, there are two main types of organisms that exists in this entire world, okay? What are these two types of creatures? First are called as unicellular. Okay, as the name itself suggests, unicellular means their entire body is made up of just one cell, right? So that's how we define them. In unicellular organisms, all the functions are carried out by a single cell, because their whole body is only made up of one cell. So all activities will have to be performed by that one single cell. And let's have a look at three examples over here. So what are the examples? Chlamydomonas, okay, paramecium, bacteria, all these are unicellular creatures, right? So these are how they look. Then obviously the second category would be multicellular organisms, And as the name again suggests, they are made up of not one but many cells put together, right? So how do we define them? Many cells grouped together in a single body and assume different functions, right, in it. So different functions are taken up by different cells and tissues, right? And that is why we call them multicellular organisms. What are their examples? Their examples are a few fungi, plants, animals. All these are multicellular creatures. So student, now that we have understood the different types of living organisms, two main types of living organisms rather, let's have a look at the shape of different types of cells. Because obviously our entire body is not made up of just one type of cell. It will be made up of many different type of cells put together. We have to understand their different shape, right? So what are these shapes of cell? Let's have a look. The first one is called as the columnar cell. Okay, the name itself suggests that these are column-like cells, and an example of these cells in our body are epithelial cells. Usually these cells form the covering of our organs and also of our entire body for that matter. After the columnar cells, we have something called as the circular biconcave cells, like these RBCs that you see in front of you. Now, circular biconcave, what does that mean? Let's understand it. Obviously, you can see that the cell is circular. That's there. Other than that, from top and from bottom, they curve inward. Okay? A concave shape is something that curves inward. Biconcave shape is something that curves inward from both the sides. This is something so that the surface area of the cell increases, and examples are red blood cells, as we already saw. Then we have spindle shaped cells. Now what is a spindle shape? A spindle was a device that was used in earlier times for weaving clothes and all those things. But what exactly is a spindle shape? A spindle shape is broad from the center and tapering towards the end, exactly like these smooth muscular cells that you see, right? They are broad in the center and taper towards the end. After spindle shape, we have something called as the oval shape. The name itself is suggestive of their shape. So example of this would be an ovum or an egg cell. One of the largest cell of the human body, right, is the egg cell. After that, we have the irregularly shaped cells. Example is amoeba. We must have heard about this example so many times. So they do not have any fixed shape. They are of an irregular shape. Then we have something called as the circular cells, which are our flat cells. Now, don't confuse them with the oval cells. That shape was slightly different. An egg shape would be an oval shape. These are proper circular cells, like a sphere. An example of them would be fat cells. Let's have a look at a few more of them. There are branched cells, probably one of the most important cells of our body, because this is a nerve cell. You see how branches are coming out of it, right? And one branch would connect to another one. So these neurons are very important in passing messages from one part of the body to another. So they're branched for that purpose. After that, we have spiral cells. You can see like a spring, they are spiraling. And the name of the organism has also been named after its shape. So it's a spirulum bacteria. It's a bacteria because it's spiral in shape, we call it as the spirulum bacteria. After that, we have the rectangular cells. And these are of Spirogyra, which is one of the most primitive version of a plant, right? Okay. After that, we have rod-shaped cells, and these are mainly of bacteria. Okay, and the name of the bacteria is Bacillus. Rather, Bacillus means rod-shaped. So these are rod-shaped bacteria over here.
And yes, please do not forget to like, share, subscribe, and press the bell icon.